Alright, there we go. You got the webcam of CLEM. BYUN right there. Stoic as it always. Both of these players. We'll have to see if they want to attempt the one gas expand here. Doesn't look like they will. Yeah, both of them just opting to go for the safe route. So not taking that little extra gamble here in order to achieve a slightly better economy over their opponent. Which means they well respect who they are up against. And see that these are serious matches after all. Both these teams, it's very important for them to win. Because Shopify Rebellion, this way, if they don't win this one, it feels like the 5th place spot from Team Liquid there might become out of reach. And Team Liquid, of course, that's exactly what they want to achieve. They want to have that little buffer area before anybody else from the bottom tiers right now on the ranking will be able to just kind of shove their way up there. Potentially Alpha X or Shopify Rebellion. So, very important for both these teams here to get themselves the clean victory. Of course, the clean victory would be so much more advantageous over the tiebreaker victory. So that's most likely what both of these teams are gunning for. And with it opening up 1-1, things must feel quite tense for these two Terran players right now. Tech lab for that factory for BYUN as CLEM decides to start making some Hellions before. Does give BYUN a bit of an uptick in that minerals here and gets his command center built a little bit earlier. A little bit earlier. Both on the low ground as well, so no advantages there. Just the slight one, of course, for BYUN being earlier. Alright. Still a reasonable force here for CLEM. That might leave his base the moment when those Reapers come in. That is so frustrating when that happens to you. Needs to send off a couple of SCVs here. Doesn't look like he's sending back a lot of units to try and deal with this. He's just going to try to make use of his reinforcements and his SCVs, as he is going to try to do the same across the map right now. And he has 4 Reapers instead of 2. There is a Cyclone meeting this advancement. And the Cyclone just barely enough with the 2 Marines to take out the 1 Hellion here. And now there's 4 Reapers on the side of BYUN's map. Another Cyclone does come out. That's a big help. On the other side of the map, CLEM does manage to stop the bleeding there as well, it seems. And with that, both players kind of trading equally overall. CLEM with the slightest lead of supply. As minimal as it gets, really. I think that promises quite a great TVT right here between these two. Again, because both kind of taking damage there, neither of them really in a position to start pressuring the other one or do any type of aggressive move. Except for CLEM, you know what, decides, let's do it anyway. Let's just go for it. Right, you might find a nice spot for that medevac to land, you never know. So he's just gonna go for it. You might get yourself stuck on top of the Cyclone as well, of course. Luckily for him, it doesn't happen mid-map. Oh, BYUN does get... Oh, that's great stuff right there. 2 Reapers and the Cyclone. That does mean that there's force here for CLEM. Well, at least it doesn't run into Cyclones, but it ran into a Raven and a bunch of Marines right there. Can't quite get that drop going, and that's a great start for BYUN right now. Being able to secure his own base against that aggression. Pick off a couple of those, you know what, kind of scouting units in the middle of the map as well. The Cyclone, a little bit similar to the Oracle overall. It's right. Its cores can run out overall, at least its main primary objective from the earlier game. For the Oracle, it would be doing damage. And for the Cyclone, I guess it could also be just doing damage, right? Kind of more of a defensive setup. But then afterwards, instead of going against Hellions and Reapers, you can start setting it up in ways as to avoid Ravens or Medevacs getting as easy access to your base as they would normally. Bit less versatile, of course, as compared to the Oracles. Have a bit more stuff they can do overall with it, but hey. Third bases for CLEM, actually, a little bit earlier than the one for BYUN. BYUN might be moving himself to a position where he's gonna attempt to blockade his opponents here. I would be surprised if he attempts any type of real breaking of CLEM. Although CLEM moving his siege tanks very far towards the third base right now, leaving his natural quite exposed. Oh, interference matrix now landing. CLEM might be in trouble, but then again, you know what? He does have still a lot of siege tanks remaining there. Does shut down the siege tanks of BYUN rather well. He has a big drop of Marines in the main base of BYUN also. And that is upticking that SCV damage right now on the other side of the map as well. The siege tank shooting away as the Viking tries to tail the Medevac right now to another location. The offensives of BYUN does seem to have found another siege tank in an interference matrix right now, as his own siege tank still doing quite a bit of damage. The Marines of CLEM have been dealt with. This may be the tipping point. 30 SCVs from CLEM go down, and there it is, the tap out. Just no more stuff remaining to take out those two siege tanks in particular for BYUN. Kicking off game number 2. In the top left side, the blue Terran player there, fighting for Team Liquid, it's CLEM. His opponent, the bottom right, rocking the red, it's BYUN from Shopify Rebellion. He took the lead for his team right now, and he can secure at least that third point, meaning that they will at least not suffer the complete loss, right? They might still be able to get themselves into a victory spot, even in the ace match, but the worst thing that happens is that they lose in the ace match, and then, well, they just, what is it again? Do you get? I don't think you get any points either, but at least your opponent only gets 1 point, right? I think it's like that, something like that, or maybe yeah, I think it's you get 1 point as the loser and 2 points then as the victor, right? I think it's something like that. Oof, man. Around that ballpark. But yeah, seeing how both these teams are very, very close to each other on the scoreboards, they would like to grab every point they can, or at least take away every point they can from the opposite side. Both of them, actually, look at that. CLEM going for the single gas so far. Does have an SCV going across the map. Trying to figure out whether or not there's a proxy Rex going on. And if he can get away with that quicker second command center. Sees a barracks over here. Sees the factory over here. That's great signs there for Mr. CLEM. Just throwing down with a happy smirk on his face that command center. Knowing that his little gamble there at the start is going to start paying off. Unless if he messes up the micro here, of course. If he messes up the micro. That could be the case still if BYUN does come across the map here with a Cyclone or maybe some Reapers, stuff like that. Could light the powder keg, of course, still. But yeah, so far, things opening-wise looking a little bit better for CLEM. Plenty of times I've said that, and then, you know what, there's still a big enough push from the player going with the double gas opening from the factory units just arriving sooner. Kind of making that slight lead obsolete, but we'll have to see if that happens here as well, of course. enough times where I've had to eat those words. But then again, these are the words I heard from TY, so I'm gonna stick to them. The smartest guy in StarCraft 2, after all. Two Reapers trying to sneak on in. Seeing an SCV going across. Oh, what's this? There's a command center flying in. Alright. Now knows about it. Reapers getting 2 kills so far. Surprisingly, that is actually a 5-worker lead right now for BYUN. CLEM gonna have that quicker mule though, of course, and will have a double SCV production line right now. But it is quite surprising that CLEM falling behind on that margin with the worker count. It's normally the player that just somehow has more than everybody else, and here kind of BYUN taking on that role for now. Might just have to be something with the build order overall, right? That my low IQ brain just never quite figured out. Basic engagements here with the Marauders and Concussive Shell coming in, trying to shut down that Cyclone. The Hellions and a couple of Reapers here rampaging up onto the high ground. This seems like quite an aggressive play, but overall, I'm not sure if it's working out. Ooh, even grabs that one last Marauder there. Tempting fate with those Cyclones that close nearby. Now going for the mineral line in the natural, and that's where he's really starting to pick off some SCVs right now. Siege tank is in position, but CLEM looks like he's going to sacrifice most of those units in order to pick off a couple more SCVs. Does manage to get 6 of them in total. Funnily enough, once again, after the early game exchanges, these players kind of ending up on an equal kind of footing. Although, let me see, I don't think there's any siege tanks available for CLEM. That is actually quite a big deal, as BYUN is now moving across the field with his own siege tank, and that means he can just set it up wherever he wants, as long as it's not like too far in front, where just SCVs can surround it instantly and stuff like that. But should be able to start pushing in here quite aggressively and get a good siege going on this natural base, theoretically speaking. See if it's gonna unfold like that. 2 siege tanks, in fact. 1 siege tank does come into play here for CLEM, but a quick interference matrix make that impossible to do anything. Good pickup micro with the siege tanks here, trying to safeguard them from the Marauder fire and those SCVs. 14 blue SCVs do fall this time around. And now suddenly CLEM, CLEM on the path of war, moving back across to BYUN's side of the map. It's not with much though, to be fair. His Ravens may pose a threat if they had any energy, but they do not. So a harsh moment in time here for CLEM. May just have to acknowledge that he will not be able to push in here and move back across the map with a significant disadvantage in workers right now. After BYUN quite masterfully secured himself that position in front of CLEM's base, forcing CLEM to deal with it. You cannot afford those siege tanks to siege up. Will be much harder and more difficult to actually get rid of them then. They most likely would have been shooting at some SCVs trying to mine as well. And, it's just not something that can happen. Can't afford not to be mining off of your mineral patches here. Not against somebody like BYUN or CLEM, of course, of that caliber. Little harassment here in the base of the natural of CLEM. Must be the Raven going around with some auto turrets. I think it... Okay, I think it got out there. No, that's a blue dot. I don't think it got out. So, maybe BYUN lost this Raven there. Oh, no, it is a red dot. Okay. Hard to say. It's a very small dot, okay? The big blobs I can see. Nice siege up here from CLEM overall, making it difficult for that third base to be placed in any favorable position. As CLEM is mining of his own third base now, so finally something going into his favor here. And helping him out in this battle. So watch out not to... Oh no, macking up a lot sooner here. The siege tanks are for Mr. BYUN, and... well, CLEM did have more of a meat shield in front of his, but... Looks like they, well, they both will lose the siege tanks that could still shoot at one another. Not sure who got out on top on that one. Being honest. Maybe if CLEM had sieged up his siege tanks at the same time, that would have been nice, but... A little bit sooner, of course, that's always the preference. Single Hellion of CLEM scouting out that third base of BYUN. Will attempt to take the third base there. Start mining from that location. Oh, good Viking control from our Frenchman. And trades one siege tank for another. Might be able to land those Vikings. No, probably doesn't want to with those Marines nearby. Kind of an awkward angle here, but BYUN is going to try to go for it. His siege tank's still not really involved with this fight. But does manage to kind of trade Marines for Marines, right? Still down on the Viking numbers though, as CLEM is slowly gaining more and more of a foothold here. That looks like it's going uncontested on this third base. But will he actually get himself in a position where he can threaten the SCVs? There we go, starting to do so now as BYUN immediately starts to evacuate. Auto turrets, oh that's a lot of auto turrets dropping down on those siege tanks and now shooting down a couple of those SCVs as well. Great pickoffs there from CLEM. Realizing his opponent might be on a trill off to his own side of the map and tries to have that not happen, of course, forcing BYUN backwards immediately. BYUN the one bleeding now. 6 SCVs went down in that exchange. Hasn't been mining from that third base for a long while now. And CLEM starting to gain momentum on the overall supply. 20 up in his lead right now. If this series is going to go 1-1 as well, I wouldn't be surprised, but we may have ourselves an ace match coming up then afterwards. Because I personally think Hearthstone and Scarlet, great match against one another as well, may end up being 1-1 also. But CLEM not out of the woodworks just quite yet. Has to find victory here in order to give his team a shot at absolute victory. And hopefully making it a bit easier for his teammate Hearthstone. Not forcing him to have to win 2 games in a row. But just at least one of them. Weird kind of struggle for positioning and control here. The Marine blob of BYUN, it felt like it was trying to either fight a flank or move into the reinforcements of CLEM that might be trying to move across. May not be enough here now. CLEM, look at that. Oh, that's a lot of siege tanks. BYUN really not having anything. Those Marines on the top side debating on what to do right now. That command center falling immediately. BYUN realizes if I move in here, I'm going to lose this game. I just do not have enough. And he's struggling to find any other opportunity perhaps. Oh, there we go. The siege tanks now in siege. That is his go for move. And that's a lot of siege tanks going down before they manage to do much. And oh, wow. Is it enough from BYUN? It is going to be enough from BYUN. Just one more siege tank remaining. Would be nice if he grabs that before it shoots again. Does manage to do so. Oh, that is a good cleanup. But, I mean, looking at the army supply, still in favor for CLEM here. Seems impossible for BYUN to catch a breath and have a meaningful shot at doing damage across the map here. Right now, will attempt, of course, as he kind of has to. Getting scanned in his own kind of area here now, realizing that as most likely going to be another point of contention. CLEM already set up with this force, and I think that we may be approaching the end here very quickly. CLEM, a couple of grand maneuvers, shutting down BYUN entirely. With this army of BYUN, the last bit of force remaining, starting to get sandwiched in the middle of the map here. CLEM wants to get the double envelopment. Never mind, just wants to go for the base race. He's going to run across. He has enough at home as well to defend here, I would say. But BYUN, I mean, he's starting to have enough to defend as well. The offensive CLEM didn't quite push as quickly as I thought it would. Oh, but getting some great tank shells right now. BYUN, I think he tried to move a siege tank a little bit closer. Definitely both sides still seemingly favoring CLEM here. Especially, I mean, even if this third base stops mining, he still has that other base. He's going at it. And now starting to maneuver Marines into the main base. Burying them up there in order to, well, see if he can do damage there. Of course, mistakes out of BYUN. Here we go, CLEM moving in a lot of SCVs here. It might be more Marines than he had accounted for. But he is willing to sacrifice those men in order to keep himself on that 4 base with his opponent on the 2 base. And there we have another fight. No more siege tanks remaining here, it seems like, for BYUN. One more in the main base, I suppose. Not entirely involved with the fight. Just slightly. CLEM still taking some damage in his own base here as well. Small cluster of Marines, but enough to shoot down a lot of SCVs if they do go for it. They will not be enough. Alright, GG is called. BYUN